So, welcome to LiberalViewer Wednesday Live. Slightly delayed version. Over the summer, it looks like for a couple weeks, I'm going to be doing the show at 5 p.m. Pacific. So, thank you all for joining me. This is my live Q&A show where I answer my viewer questions that you can ask in the discussion section now. I also take questions that people ask during the week. On Twitter and on Facebook. I've got a Twitter page, twitter.com/liberalviewer or facebook.com/liberalviewer. So if you want to ask me a question for next week, if some question you want to ask comes up during the week, you can just send me a question there and I'll be happy to answer it for you. I did get a couple questions asked of me this afternoon before I started the show that I was able to prepare some answers for. Let me just make sure, can everyone see and hear me? Thank you very much. I always like it when people let me know. So the first question I got was from this afternoon was from Terry Alfer. And he said, question for today, there is evidence that Prism has been effective on some level by preventing a terrorist attack on the MTA in 2009, see article. Therefore, is there any way possible to prevent such attacks without violating our civil liberties? How? Well, I wouldn't be so quick to judge that Prism has been effective or necessary in preventing any terrorist attacks. I saw someone testify today that it had prevented dozens of attacks, but we haven't heard any specifics. There's this one... I believe that article there was referring to the targeting of the New York subway system by Najibullah Zazi. And I actually saw a clip of Republican Senator Rand Paul appearing on Your World with Neil Cavuto on Fox News earlier this afternoon. I'm going to play a clip of how he responded to that here.
My suspicion is that even the people who they say they got through this system, really they got through good old-fashioned police work, because the one guy they're talking about, Cazaz, who had to do with his subway bombing, they nabbed his co-conspirator 3 months beforehand through normal processes.
Through normal channels, not any of these things.
My guess is Nasir was making phone calls to Cazaz. That's how they got Cazaz, and not through some sort of random linking of phone calls.
Well, I think Rand Paul would be a little more credible on the issue if he wasn't calling Najibullah Zazi Cazaz. I think his last name is actually Zazi, but anyone can make a mistake on live TV. So, but it's not because just what Rand Paul said. If you look at the prosecution of Najibullah Zazi, there was evidence presented, and they said that they got the information from an email, not a phone call, because they had caught his co-conspirator or targeted his co-conspirator overseas months before, and they got him through the email address. That's not the Prism, or that's not the phone call system. It might have been with the email system, but actually I think it may be more what Rand Paul said about the police work. And I mean, that's the thing. I'm not convinced that this much information really helps anyone. I think that, like for example, I read the report from the 9/11 Commission, and it seemed like they had too much information, and they didn't have the ability to process it, and that seems like the more likely. That would be the civil libertarian response to all this. The second question I got from someone this afternoon was a question posted right here in the comment section right when I created the live event. Comes from Hen Sandwich, says, what do you think of James Clapper's untruthful statement during the Senate intelligence hearing? Does he at the very least need to resign? Now, for those who don't know what that question is referring to, I actually got the clip. This is from March 2013 hearing. That's several months ago, before this whole thing came out about the NSA collecting billions of phone calls every day. basically not the actual contents of the phone calls, but the metadata, which is the phone number, who was called, what time, the duration of the call, location of both ends of the call. And that is being collected on basically every phone call made in the United States every day, and has been probably for years. But this is what James Clapper said when he was asked a question by Ron Wyden back in March 2013 on a very, well, here you can see the clip for yourself right here.
Last summer, the NSA director was at a conference, and he was asked a question about the NSA surveillance of Americans. He replied, and I quote here, "The story that we have millions or hundreds of millions of dossiers on people is completely false." The reason I'm asking the question is, having served on the committee now for a dozen years, I don't really know what a dossier is in this context. So what I wanted to see is if you could give me a yes or no answer to the question, does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir.
It does not.
Not wittingly. There are cases where they could inadvertently, perhaps, collect, but not wittingly.
So that doesn't really seem to square up with what we've learned in the last week about what the government is collecting under these two different programs. One is the Prism program that collects basically email. This is content of emails, videos, phone calls that are international calls. It targets foreign sources, but it can include Americans' emails and phone calls that go overseas to those people. And it can be much wider than an individual person. It could be like all the phone calls and emails and videos and basically all the internet traffic to Pakistan or to India or to Mexico. It's hard to say. We don't really know the details. So that's the what they call the FISA Amendments Act program. I think it's called the 702 program. And then there's the Patriot Act 215 program, where they're supposedly collecting these what I was talking about, the metadata, and that's the millions of Americans. And I don't know how you get out of what James Clapper told Ron Wyden in his committee back in March. That seems pretty dishonest. I heard James Clapper's explanation earlier today was something like that was the least untruthful answer that he could give. It is a crime to perjury and lying to Congress are crimes, but actually they have kind of strict elements, and you have to hear the explanation. So I don't know if what he did was criminal, but as to whether he should resign, well, if he doesn't have the confidence of the president, since he serves the president, that would be a reason to resign. Or if he doesn't have credibility with Congress, I don't know. But it is disconcerting. On the other hand, he's the director of the NSA, and it's not always his job to be truthful. He's kind of like a spy master, right? So he shouldn't be lying to Congress, and maybe he should have said that he wanted to answer that in closed session, because supposedly they're briefing Congress on this. But anyway, I just showed the clip. You can judge for yourself. That seems pretty dishonest in light of recent revelations. So I guess that's my answer. So those are the two questions I had asked before I started the show here. And it seems like I've got a couple dozen viewers here at least. And I'd like to answer your live questions if we have some to talk about here. Oh, I see Pat's Rule 213. Oh, wait. Let me see. Let me go back. Pat's Rule 213 says, first question for right now, what are your thoughts on the Federal Reserve? Audit it, end it, do nothing. Well, I've talked about the Federal Reserve in previous videos. And I saw that I got like an extensive post from someone in the comments section after one of my videos where I talked about it that just said a lot of things that I didn't think were truthful. The Federal Reserve is a quasi-government agency. It basically prints our money for us. It's not completely government not a completely government agency because it's supposed to be independent, which is to keep it separate from politics. And like the chairman of the Federal Reserve is appointed for, is it a 7-year term? I can't remember the length of the term, but it isn't appointed for the term of the president, and their terms outlast the president, so they're supposed to be nonpartisan, and they're supposed to make decisions about how much money they print and how they set interest rates that isn't supposed to benefit Republicans or Democrats. And I think it is a good thing to have a central bank that is somewhat independent, even though their decisions are political and tends to be helpful to the ruling elites or the corporate class or large corporations, and not so much for people who want growth and employment. And that's kind of the Federal Reserve has had this bias against inflation, which is also what you get when there's growth. And but at least since and also you could say the Federal Reserve helped fuel the housing bubble that caused the Great Recession, but those have to do with policy mistakes, not with some evil thing going on in the Federal Reserve. And I think it's important to have a central bank and to have it be somewhat nonpartisan and removed from direct political control of the government. So I think that those people who have this conspiracy theory about the Federal Reserve are I think that's kind of fringe. But I don't have any problem with auditing the Federal Reserve and finding out more about its internal workings. And I think it has been, like I said, involved in some problems in the past. So it's not like I think the Federal Reserve is beyond reproach or incapable of being investigated. I just think those people who think it's some like evil institution that's controlling the world or the country, that's not really true. Let's see, another question. Let's see. Oh, John Klein can't wait for Glenn Beck's earth-shattering news that is supposed to rock the nation to its very core and take down the government via whistleblower. Says it will be in the next 24 hours. Lol. Well, I did see Glenn Beck was coming out in favor of Edward Snowden, so that kind of shows the way that things are getting scrambled around, since the president in power who's spying on everyone is now a Democrat. So people on the right are more free to glorify or turn into heroes people who expose big government spying. So that was nice, at least. But yeah, I didn't hear about this Glenn Beck earth-shattering news. I guess I'll have to wait. Although I think we've all been disappointed before by that kind of thing. Let me see. If I run out of questions, I'm just going to end the show early, which I guess would be okay. Let me see. There's another question here from Pat's Rule 213. I used to like Rand Paul until he supported Mitt Romney in 2012, but he does say good things, but he's still supporting the Democrat and Republican two-part dictatorship. Well, there are lots of parts of that statement I can't agree with, but I would agree that there are some things that Rand Paul says that are good and some things that are not so good. So, I do like the Libertarian part of the Republican Party when they stand up for civil liberties. I did like Rand Paul's filibuster about drones, although the way it ended and the way it was focused on the killing of American citizens rather than the entire drone program, that was a little disappointing. But so the whole thing about the Democrat and Republican two-party dictatorship, that I get a lot of comments about that, about the false dichotomy. And I've talked in other videos about other live events about how I think that there are benefits in the United States to the two-party system, and that it has kept the United States more centrist because both parties have to appeal to the center because that's where the votes are, and having two parties that are really the only ones that can have national power, both vying for that centrist votes, means the centrist vote means that the United States didn't get like full fascism or full communism. That's the centrism. When I made this comment before, people were saying, "What, the United States is centrist? And compared to Europe, it's like right wing." That you're talking about today's United States compared to today's Europe. But if you compare the fluctuations in the United States to the fluctuations in Europe, the United States has stayed a lot closer to the center than Europe, with its, communist countries and fascist countries. And if you look over the last, 50, 100 years, going back through, you'll see that the United States has been more centrist than Europe has been, even if right now the United States is to the right of Europe. So I would make that point. Let me see if I can find some new questions here. Yes, he could have. Okay, I got a couple comments on what I'm saying. Let me see if I can. Oh, Mr. X00666 says, amazing how the percentages change regarding what people are cool with and not cool with depending on who's in power. Yeah, I mean, it is sad, and I've seen those numbers, basically, that it's like 2/3 of Democrats support the eavesdropping stuff when only like 1/3 of them supported under Bush, and it's pretty much the reverse for Republicans. And I mean, that just goes to show that some people are more partisan than principled. I mean, I would like to point to some videos I've made. I've made several videos on this eavesdropping before these current revelations in the last week. I even made one during the 2008 election criticizing President Obama, or then Senator Obama, and I've tried to popularize that, I think, because it was when I was criticizing President Obama for voting for the FISA Amendments Act that authorized the program, the Prism program, that gathers up all the information about the international communications of Americans. So, and in that video I mentioned that President Obama, then Senator Obama, had also voted for the Patriot Act reauthorization. So those people who are surprised that President Obama is now implementing the laws that he voted for as a senator, well, they should have paid more attention during the election. I think that President Obama has always been a pragmatic centrist, and the problem is, I mean, look at the attacks that Obama has gotten over the Benghazi attack after it happened, or the Boston bombing, as to whether they did enough to prevent it. If there was some big attack and there were people in the national security infrastructure who could leak that Obama cut these programs when they were authorized by Congress, and he didn't do everything he could do. I mean, that is basically the first priority of a politician, is to get reelected and to avoid a big scandal, a national security scandal for not being tough enough on terrorism. And while to not be that way would require, strong leadership, and I wish that President Obama had been a stronger leader toward civil liberties. And when I first supported him, when he announced, I chose him as the candidate I supported in the primaries back in February 2007. I actually donated money to him, and I was a little, I've been more and more disappointed with him. I was disappointed with him during the election in 2008. That's why I made that video in 2008 saying I was, a little disappointed, but not surprised, because it fit his character of being this pragmatic centrist. So I think what he's doing is unconstitutional, but I don't think it should be that big a surprise to people who are watching him carefully during his campaign and throughout his presidency. So what was the question? Yeah, so why... Pollock Fury asks, why does the Libertarian Party get no coverage when they are the third largest party in the U.S.? That's like the Liberal of Canada getting no coverage. It seems odd. Well, I think one reason is because, maybe it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but they don't, at least in terms of national elections, they don't have much of a chance. And, there's the presidential debates commission that sets the standards as to who gets up on the stage in the presidential debates, and it has to be someone who has, like, what is it, 5%, 15%? I can't even remember what the number is, but it's too high for any third party to ever get in the debate since the days of Ross Perot. And that's the way the two parties want it. And I think that there are benefits to that, like I was saying, that we have this two-party system, but I think that it's definitely true that the media and the political system is set up to favor the two parties, and it does freeze out the Libertarian Party, even though it's the third largest party. Eric Ling asks, oh wait, I just messed it up there, where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Kind of wonder what happens to the NSA if by some magic luck they're made to roll back their nonsense. Well, I mean, the NSA, I mean, it's not like U.S. intelligence doesn't have a role in protecting the United States, and just because what they're doing now is out of bounds doesn't mean that there aren't ways that they can spy on people for national security that's legal, and I think there is a role for the NSA. I mean, I don't know. The national security state has gotten so big that it would be kind of nice to scrap all those agencies and start with some new ones that have more of a culture of protecting civil liberties. But I mean, it's not that NSA doesn't have a role. It just should be a more limited role, I guess. M.K. Anderson asks, I'm beginning my law degree. What are some good classes to take first? Constitutional law, civil, etc. Well, if I remember, first year law, basically everything is chosen for you. There are almost no electives when you're a first year law student, at least in the United States. So you basically have to take civil procedure, torts, criminal law. Some law schools have constitutional law first year, some have second. I actually transferred law school, so I got a little messed up on that. And anyway, there are a couple other, I don't know, I'm kind of blanking on all the courses, but it was a while ago. But basically, there are, everything is pretty much chosen for you, at least in American law schools in the first year. And then in the second and third years, you start to get to choose stuff and specialize. And I was always interested in the extra constitutional law and criminal law classes because I was planning on becoming a public defender. But, you know, it just depends on what it is that you are interested in. But I wouldn't worry too much about trying to choose courses first year law if you're going to law school in the United States. Let's see, someone put, let's see, Ted Filmmaker. Let's see, more comments down the comments section. I'm doing my best to see everything here. I know I skipped over some stuff that looked like comments instead of questions. But I do see I've got a few more comments coming here, probably enough to get through the half-hour mark. Let me see. Marcus Rain asks, is there a risk that the Republican Party will be too torn and split into two? Well, I mean, it's possible. That is basically the way that political parties have changed in the United States history, but it hasn't happened very often, is a third party will come up and they're usually subsumed into one of the two parties. And, you know, the Republican Party has been around since 60, when Lincoln was elected as the first Republican president, and the Democratic Party in some form or another has been around since the beginning. So the chances of one of the parties actually breaking up isn't very high, and for another party to take over, that would be pretty much unprecedented in the last 150 years, right? I got that right. But what could happen is that there'll be a third party, and then it'll be subsumed in the Republican Party, kind of like the Tea Party almost did break off, but it was like always a part of the Republican Party. But I don't know if that answers the question. Pollock Fury asks, what is your thoughts on Thomas Sowell as well as Ryan Dawson? Have you heard of either? If you have not seen War by Deception, it's a good watch. Just want to see your view on that film. Well, Ryan Dawson, I haven't heard of. Thomas Sowell, I know about just because of my dealings with Lee Doran, How the World Works, and that's one of Lee Doran's heroes. Do I have that book? I think around here somewhere. I had Basic Economics. I've been trying to read that. It's a pretty dense book. Oh, see, you got the back of my head there. I do have Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics that I read some stuff in, and I thought it was really simplistic. The right-wing economic, they try to simplify economics to these basic forces, which do have an effect on economics, but there are so many other things. I saw him talk about how the free market had brought up the gas mileage of cars during a time period when there were these cafe standards in that Basic Economics books. And I've been thinking, one of these days I've been thinking of doing a book review if I have a time to do it, but it's like a 500-page book, so I haven't really had the time to go through it. But basically, to me, those kind of economists are making an argument that would be like saying the ocean tides are responsible for Columbus's discovery of the Americas. And now the ocean tides definitely affected his voyages, and they were actually had a huge effect on his voyages, but they don't put into any importance the human factor, like Columbus's decision to go, and the decision of the Spanish to fund his, that was like a government decision. And it's all like these huge economic forces, and not any of the human activity, which somehow doesn't have any effect. Let me see. Mutex50 says United States is corporatist, not centrist. If you want to centrism, then we need to implement approval voting. Well, I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean, but I'm not sure what approval voting is. But I think the United States is corporatist and centrist. I don't think those are mutually exclusive. Phoenix Rider says, in regards to the latest situation in Syria and the surrounding region, what do you think will be done militarily by U.S. EU arms embargo doesn't officially end until August? Well, I'm not sure there are any good options. The two things that they're talking about are the arm and train of the good rebels, and I'm not sure that there are any really good rebels. Even that one general, I can't remember his name, I always blank on his name, but that one general who defected a year ago, who's supposedly the head of the good rebels, and then the other is this no-fly zone implemented by cruise missiles, but I'm not sure that the United States should have that bigger role in Syria. I see the conflict is growing, and there are a lot of people getting killed, but it's not really. I think the United States getting involved could have unintended consequences, and when the United States gets involved, it becomes like a major player and a major factor in. And can change this. It's almost like the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, where just by getting involved, it changes everything around. So, let me see. I've got one or two more questions, maybe. Marcus Reno, he just asked, the only good thing Obama has done is supporting gay rights and trying to fix the healthcare system. Well, it's not the only thing, but those are two good things he's done. Mr. Jerniga asked, should Mr. Snowden fear the possible 10-year conviction for violating the Classified Documents Clause or something worse? Well, there's also the Espionage Act, especially with the latest stuff he did with about our hacking of China. Let's see. So I think he should fear something worse than 10 years, yes. NO8549 asks, over-the-counter sale of morning after pill to women of all ages is good. Why was the administration against that? I don't get it. Planned Parenthood helped get out vote for Obama. I think it was... I another symptom of President Obama's need to be a pragmatic centrist. You know, that is a hot button issue, even though all the science is on the side of giving out the morning after pill to, you know, over the counter, because it's a lot less dangerous than aspirin or a lot of other things that are given over the counter. And the idea that women or girls, girls who can't get pregnant, below a certain age, they're not going to be taking it. And if a girl's old enough to get pregnant, I think she's old enough to be able to take this pill. And I think he was against it because just it was a hot button issue, and he's trying to seem centrist on that, the abortion issue. And when it comes to, I think one of the places where they try to not seem extreme on abortion is when it comes to minors. It was a stupid move, but that is just, stupid in terms of being anti-scientific. All the scientific evidence was on the side of allowing the over-the-counter morning after pill, which is basically just birth control pills. It's like a large dose of regular birth control pills. It's not an abortion pill. It doesn't abort an implanted fetus. It works the same way that regular birth control pills work, which is by preventing implantation or preventing ovulation. That's the main way it works, is preventing ovulation. And there's some evidence that it might prevent implantation of a fertilized egg, but that's before most people don't consider that a pregnancy until it's actually implanted. And that's also the same way that birth control pills work. So if you think that the morning after pill is an abortion pill, then every birth control pill is a abortion pill, which it isn't. So that's stupid. So what Obama did was kind of stupid. RJHOO asks, LV asked this in one of your videos, but here goes again. Why is it all right that NSA is allowed to spy on foreign people? Americans seem to not care so long as they don't get spied on, and could this... and then it got... have some effect on foreign relations? We all know countries spy on each other. It seems weird to spy on allies. Foreigners don't vote, so politicians don't care as much about people who don't vote. And Americans don't care as much about foreigners as they do about Americans. That has been proven all the time. Just watch any news coverage about any plane crash anywhere in the world here in the United States, and you'll hear how many Americans died in the plane crash. So I don't think that is very much of a surprise. That it's the same thing I was talking about with Rand Paul's drone filibuster about the killing of Americans on American soil, but they didn't seem to care about the killing of anyone else. So there are some legal differences between using government power to seize stuff in the territory of the United States and overseas. That used to be the way things worked in the FISA court before the FISA Amendments Act, where if the spies were collecting stuff overseas, that wasn't the matter of the courts. That's national security. That's spying. It's kind of what you're saying. We spy. We've always spied on allies. It's never been just enemies. We spy on everybody, and they spy on us too. So I don't think that's a big surprise. That's something people keep secret, but that's just. Maybe we shouldn't, but it's not a surprise, and it's been happening for as long as there have been nations and allies, I think, maybe. But anyway, I guess that's the answer to that question. I've definitely gone over my 30 minutes. I need to finish up here. I do have a video that I'm going to be making real soon. I'm just finishing up about a Fox News story on Neil Cavuto, where when the ACLU filed the lawsuit, they seemed to report on it as it made the stock market drop. And then I saw today that some other people had filed lawsuits about the NSA spying, and I'm going to capture that clip and include it in the video. Hopefully that'll be up. It probably won't be up tomorrow, but it might be probably by Friday. One way or another, that video should be up by Friday, and I'll see you all on my LiberalViewer Sunday live clip roundup at 6:30 p.m. this Sunday, and then I'll be back at 5 p.m. on Wednesday next week for my new summer hours, I guess. It'll probably be 5 p.m. for a while, and thank you all for joining me. I'm glad to have still got a few dozen viewers here, and hopefully I'll get a few more live, a few more when it's recorded. It's enough to keep me doing the show for a few more weeks, I guess. So thank you all for joining me. I hope you have a good rest of your week, and see you around on the internet.